A few days ago, my husband's family and I were preparing to depart for our annual family vacation. This tradition, where my in-laws gather and select a destination, provides us with a week-long escape from our daily routines. My husband is handsome and 30 years old, and I am 27 years old and recently married. We had been together for 3 years before tying the knot. This was my first time participating in this family tradition, and I was genuinely excited about it. When we were engaged, my husband had invited me to join them, but since his family hadn't extended a formal invitation, I declined, feeling somewhat awkward. However, this time my mother-in-law, Sandra, personally invited me to join them, which meant a great deal to me. Previously, I sensed Sandra's disapproval of me, as she never made me feel truly welcome in the family. She often seemed distant and somewhat cold towards me, unlike her behavior with others. I believe her attitude towards me changed when my husband and I began dating, and he moved out of their house to live with me. Despite her efforts to conceal it, I could tell that she harbored some resentment towards me for being the reason her son left the family home. Being independent, I had been living away from my parents since college, so living with his or my family was never on the table for me. I made it clear to my husband early in our relationship that I wouldn't entertain the idea of living with his parents or being near them. He understood and respected my stance, as he had been contemplating moving out on his own before we met. However, Sandra's desire for everyone to live together under one roof or nearby persisted. Although my husband's older sister, who is married with a daughter, moved out due to space constraints, she remained nearby, meeting with the family frequently. Sandra views this as the norm and considers my desire for independence unreasonable. Yet my husband and I are content with our living arrangements. He values the privacy he lacked growing up and prefers living away from his family. I am aware that Sandra holds me responsible for her son's decision to live independently, and perhaps she sees me as the reason he doesn't want to live with his family anymore. Apart from that, I can't think of any reason for her not liking me. I've always been very pleasant to my husband's family and have done my best to assimilate into his family, but apparently even that's not enough. A couple of days ago, Sandra made it clear that she still doesn't consider me family, even though I married her son just a couple of months ago. We had been planning the family vacation for months, and I had played an active role in it. Usually my husband's parents pay for all of it, and it's never any trouble for them because they are quite well off. I had assumed it would be the same this time around because my husband had assured me we didn't need to worry about the money beforehand. Just to be clear, I didn't have a problem with paying for myself, but I had been told that I wouldn't need to. So when right before the day we were supposed to leave for our vacation, Sandra sat me down and told me that I would need to pay for myself, it came as quite a shock to me. She had invited me over, saying she wanted to discuss certain things about the trip, so I had gone over by myself since my husband was finishing up work before taking time off. She went on to explain that this was meant to be a family vacation, and that's why she and her husband would cover all the expenses every year. Unfortunately, they didn't consider me family just yet because they felt they hadn't gotten to know me that well. So she expected me to pay for myself but not make much of a fuss about it because that would just spoil the vacation vibe, and she didn't want to start on a bad note. She didn't stop there. She decided to make things worse by telling me that the reason she didn't consider me close enough to call family was because, unlike her son-in-law, she rarely ever got to see me and my husband since we never visited as often as the others. That was one of the reasons why she felt like I wasn't family just yet. I was very hurt by what she said because I felt like I had tried hard to get along with his family, even though Sandra had made it very clear to me that she didn't exactly approve of me. All along, she had led me to believe that I was finally part of the family by letting me be part of the vacation planning. She could have been upfront with me right from the beginning, and I would have been okay with it. But telling me this right before the day we were supposed to leave just seemed unnecessarily cruel and mean. However, I tried my best to hide my feelings and make it seem as though I was okay with this and understood. On the inside, I was upset. I didn't want to say anything until I had discussed this with my husband because I didn't want to react quickly and let my anger get the better of me. So I told her that it was okay and that I understood where she was coming from, so I would pay for myself. She was a little surprised when I said that it was all fine, and I could tell that this was not the reaction she had hoped for. But I didn't stick around to talk to her afterward and headed back home. It was all I could do to keep myself from bursting into tears as soon as I came home. But I tried to be calm and explain everything to my husband. When my husband saw that I was visibly upset and asked me what had happened at his mother's house, he was furious. He told me he was going to cancel the vacation then and there because he had no interest in spending any more time with his mother after the way she had insulted me. I then admitted to him that I had suspected she didn't like me for quite some time, but I never brought it up because it was just a theory. Now, however, I was beginning to feel that it wasn't just a theory after all, and there might be some truth to it. I explained to him how his mother's behavior towards me had changed when he moved out to live with me. She started acting cold towards me after that. Also, what she had said about me not being close enough to be considered family, because I didn't visit them often, all pointed towards the same explanation. When I told him about it, he said it could be true, because he had always known that family meant a lot to his mother. She wanted him to at least live nearby, and she had been pretty upset when he had first told her he would be moving out to live with me. Though Sandra hadn't shown it at the time, she probably blamed me for it and was still holding it against me, which explained her behavior. However, that was still not an excuse to be so cruel to me and try to humiliate me right before we left for our vacation. I felt awful that day, and while we were talking, my husband and I decided that canceling the vacation and telling her off just wasn't good enough. I wanted her to feel just as bad as I had felt. So he and I decided that we would go along with their plan and meet at the airport the next day. But instead of accompanying them, we would just take a flight somewhere else and leave them at the airport. By the time they could understand what was going on, it would be too late, and we would already be somewhere else. It was a perfectly foolproof plan, and we went through with it. The next day, we met the family at the airport just as we had planned. Then we excused ourselves, saying that we wanted to get some photos clicked, and walked away. They did not suspect a thing because they were too busy talking among themselves. So we headed over to the counter and purchased 2 tickets to a flight that would take off the earliest and to a desirable destination. We ended up picking San Francisco, and right now, we're here, and it's really fun. We were supposed to go to Miami, but I prefer this because it's just me and my husband without anyone who doesn't like me. By the time we had purchased the tickets and taken our seats on the flight, his family had figured out that something was off. They tried to call us several times and had even texted us, but we just ignored all of it. Luckily, an airport is a pretty big place, and they were not able to find us in time to stop us or confront us. We were able to reach our destination without much drama. Once our flight landed, we finally decided to get back to them, and my husband told everybody the truth in the family text thread. He told them about what Sandra had said to me the day before, and said that since this was supposed to be a family vacation and I wasn't family, we had decided that we had better stay out of this altogether out of respect for her. We had expected Sandra to be mad at us and maybe my father-in-law, but we hadn't expected the entire family to turn against us. Hey, did you love and enjoy the story? Take a moment to like and subscribe for more. Everybody seemed pretty mad because we had abandoned them at the airport, and they had been worried sick about us. They had still taken their flight, though, so I don't understand what they were so pissed about. Anyway, they told us that it was irresponsible and selfish of us to just go MIA without a word and leave them wondering about us. They were especially upset with me because they didn't think that Sandra's words warranted such extreme action. They believed that I shouldn't even have thought that they were going to cover for me to come on the family vacation, and that it had been my mistake not to offer to pay for myself and just assume that I could come with them for free. Seeing as how I hadn't made an effort to become a part of the family, they said that I hadn't ever tried to attend their weekly family dinners, or even keep in touch with them online and chat with them every day, which they do apparently. It felt like a whirlwind of emotions. I had no time for them, and while they respected that, they couldn't allow me to use them and treat them like banks. That's why Sandra felt the need to clarify that they were not going to pay for me to join them on the vacation, simply because I hadn't made an effort to get along with them, nor had I offered to pay for myself. I felt insulted because I earned my own money, and I would never expect somebody else to pay for me. So for them to imply that I was being entitled and self-centered was not okay with me. I told them that their expectations were unrealistic and didn't even make sense. They claimed that they had dinner together weekly, but it was every other day. It was completely unfair of them to expect my husband and me to drive to their house after work and have dinner with them so often. We wanted some personal space, and yet we still tried our very best to visit them at least once every 1 or 2 weeks. This had been going on since way before we were even married. I felt like they were overlooking that on purpose just to make it feel like I was in the wrong here when I wasn't, and I knew it. So I reminded them exactly how hard I had tried to become a part of their family to the best of my abilities. And if that was still not enough for them, then there was not much that my husband and I could do. Now they were pissed and said that we were being immature and had ruined their vacation with our selfishness. I feel like I had to make this clear because a lot of the comments were accusing me of isolating my husband, and that's a really heavy accusation to levy against someone. Let me just say that it wasn't just me who thought that the family getting together was a little excessive and unnecessary. No family needs to meet every other day for lunch and dinner. At that point, you might as well be living together. And what was the point of moving away from them if he was just going to visit them every single day? My husband also wanted this, not just me. The two of us had decided that we were going to live a little distance away from them and try to limit our visits to his family to maybe once a week. They were not happy about it, but this is what both of us wanted. It wasn't a decision that I made single-handedly, so I think it's unfair for everybody to just blame me for it. And that's exactly what his family is doing. Regarding what they said about me expecting them to pay for my plane tickets and take me on vacation with them when I hadn't even made an effort to get to know them and become a part of the family, I don't think any of that is true. I did not expect them or feel entitled for them to cover me for the vacation. And if they had told me right from the beginning that they expected me to cover my expenses for the vacation, I would have either agreed to it or I just wouldn't have gone. But for Sandra to sit me down one day before the vacation and tell me that my expenses weren't going to be covered by them because I wasn't family, that just felt premeditated and a deliberate move to make me feel bad. I would not have had a problem paying for myself, as I already mentioned above. They have unreasonable expectations, but I don't. And yes, I have tried hard to get along with them. They're saying that I didn't try to become a part of the family just because I didn't go to their house. Every other day, it's just ridiculous. I did try very hard to get them to like me, and I thought it was just Sandra who didn't approve of me. But as it turns out, none of them like me as much as I thought they did, and that just sucks. Update 1. So my husband and I are still on vacation, but his family is being total pain. I have realized that their being mad at me for not wanting to practically live with them was very unreasonable. I don't need to sacrifice my personal space and privacy just to please them. If they want to be mad at me, then fine, they can go ahead and be mad. But I just wish that they wouldn't make it a point to let us know that they are mad because we know, we just don't care. And they need to accept it. Just yesterday, they decided to text me because texting my husband wasn't working. They told me that whatever I was trying to do to their family was going to fail because their relationship was way too strong for someone like me to break. I thought it was needlessly dramatic of them to make such a big deal out of this because as far as I was concerned, I hadn't done anything to break them apart. But they had insulted me, and that is why my husband and I had decided to separate from them. Once again, they have failed to realize that my husband has free will as well, and I can't exactly force him to do anything that he doesn't want to do. So if we decided to have a separate vacation away from them, it was because my husband wanted the same thing. And I know that it was difficult for them to accept it, but it was the truth. I texted them back, saying that my husband didn't want to spend his vacation with them, and both of us had decided on this. So it was silly of them to just blame me. I also told them that if they had just treated me decently instead of being horrible, then maybe my husband wouldn't have even wanted to separate from them. So if they wanted to blame somebody, then they should just blame themselves. Sandra had been sending me those texts, but I knew that the entire family agreed with her, and it was a shared sentiment that I was somehow controlling my husband and forcing him to break away from his family. I didn't want to engage with her or anybody else from his family after I had said whatever I wanted to tell them. So I decided to block them all and focus on my vacation because I had taken time off for this, and I wasn't about to let it go to waste. I told my husband about the text, and he told me to just ignore it because there was no point in trying to explain anything to them. They were too caught up in themselves to consider that maybe we just want to lead a normal life, and it wouldn't be possible if we were living with them or even around them. They're all just dramatic. Update 2. So we finally came back from our vacation last night, and it was a really fun couple of days. But now that it's over, it's back to work. We were expecting to have a peaceful week back here, but that's not going to be possible because his family also returned today. We had no contact with his family when we were on vacation because both of us had blocked them all on social media platforms, and we had also blocked their numbers. They didn't know where we were, so they couldn't get to us in any way. It had been quite peaceful away from them and the drama. But now that we're back, and so are they wasted no time in trying to reach out to us, only to create drama. We had just come back home from a long day at work when we heard somebody at our doorstep ringing the bell like nobody's business. We knew that it had to be somebody from my husband's family, even before we opened the door. And sure enough, it was Sandra standing right outside. We didn't want her to come inside and told her that we were really tired from work and were not interested in speaking to her right now. But she pushed past us and entered the living room anyway. I was annoyed and told her that I wanted her out of my house because the way she had behaved with me before the vacation was unacceptable. I had nothing to say to her, and neither did I want to hear from her because I just knew that she was going to find a way to blame me for everything. But instead, she told me to shut up and said that she wasn't here to talk to me anyway. She was here to talk to her son, so I needed to stay quiet. I didn't like the tone she took with me, so I told her that she couldn't speak to me that way, especially when she was under my roof. That was all I needed to say to anger her. She started yelling at me like crazy and accused me of a bunch of things, like trying to isolate her son and put her down in front of him so he loses respect for her. She told me she had always known that this day was going to come because I had always been a homewrecker and couldn't stand to see the fact that my husband was close with his family, as it would mean I had less control over him. She called me a psycho and said she was here to rescue her son before it was too late, claiming I had no right to interfere because I was not family. I retorted that I was glad I wasn't a part of her family, because it seemed to me like she wanted to run a cult more than just have a family. She completely lost it when I said that and practically launched herself at me. Before I knew it, she had grabbed me by the hair and was physically attacking me. It took my husband mere seconds to separate us and force his mother out of the house. She didn't stop screaming at me, even as she was being kicked out, and kept calling me derogatory things that I didn't even want to mention here because they were just that bad. I was quite shaken up, and I waited for a couple of seconds to calm down before my husband and I called the cops and had her removed from our property. She hadn't left even after my husband had pushed her out of the house and had remained in the front yard screaming at the top of her voice about how I was breaking her family, but she was not going to let it happen. It wasn't until the cops finally arrived on the scene that she stopped yelling, and then she started begging us not to press charges. But it was too late, and my husband and I had already made up our minds that we were not going to drop this so easily. I mean, she had physically attacked me, so I couldn't just let it go because then nothing would stop her from doing it a second time. So we pressed charges against her, and since I wasn't injured badly, they're probably going to let her off easy, but at least it's going to go on record. She was taken away, and she was sobbing uncontrollably when that was happening, which was crazy because just a few seconds before that she had been screaming at us and threatening us. After that, my husband and I decided to start looking for a lawyer so we could get a restraining order against her, because she could not be trusted. There was something very unhinged about her, and I didn't want to risk anything. We also started thinking about moving away, something we had already been considering for a while because this location was kind of inconvenient for my husband, and we were thinking about moving to a place that was equally close to both of our offices. We just want to leave no stone unturned to make sure that she can't get to us ever again, and the same goes for his family as well. It's been a couple of hours since she was arrested, and nobody from his family has tried to contact us yet. But I know that they will be very upset about this, and they might even disinherit him over this. But it's worth it because Sandra needed to be taken down a notch, and I have no regrets about saying that she was a cult leader and then having her arrested for attacking me. She deserved all of it. Update 3. We got the restraining order against Sandra, and it's been a couple of days since then. These past 2 weeks after Sandra was arrested were busy for both of us because we started looking for a new house to move into, and we also had to deal with the drama that ensued later. Of course, there was also the restraining order and the court appearances to deal with. With all that I was dealing with, I didn't have much time to post an update. But right now I can. So first things first. Sandra got off easy with just community service since I wasn't badly hurt. However, my husband's family decided to make a big deal out of it and pretend like she was the victim in this situation, one she had created. They ran their mouths off to every single family member they could find, telling them about how I had instigated Sandra, and that's why she had pounced on me. But when I got the reaction that I wanted, we called the police and had her arrested. They're claiming that this was all planned and had every intention of provoking Sandra just so she would attack us, and we would have an excuse to get her in trouble. So somehow, I'm the bad guy here, even though I was the one who got attacked. It doesn't even make sense, but that's the story they are choosing to go with. Luckily, not many people are buying it, and they are mostly on our side. So they're cutting my husband's family off. In a way, it's true what I said about Sandra wanting to run a cult instead of a family, and that her expectations were unreasonably high and kind of unhealthy. I'm glad I got the chance to say it to her face because she needed to know that she was a cuckoo. And if the opportunity ever presents itself again, then I would gladly say it to her again. Even if that means that she would attack me once more because it would be worth it. But the likelihood of us meeting again anytime soon is low because of the restraining order. Also, because my husband and I moved houses a couple of days ago, they don't know where to find us now, and they have been blocked on all our social media ever since we went on vacation. So that's not a matter of concern for us. Honestly, he's more relieved than I am because he used to say that being around his family was almost suffocating for him, and I can see why. I would probably feel the same way if my parents acted like that and gave me absolutely zero privacy or space of my own. I guess I got really lucky when it came to my family, including my husband. Did you enjoy the story? We'd love to hear your thoughts. Thanks for watching, and don't forget to leave a comment and subscribe for more content like this.